Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck, where we take demos with some of the leading and most innovative technology companies that are out there so that you don't have to and can still learn about all the incredible things that revenue technology companies are doing and building for you in revenue operations. I am your co-host, Matthew Valm, CEO and co-founder of RevOps Co-op, and today I am joined by Anna Randall, who is the Vice President of Sales over at TigerEye. And TigerEye is business intelligence for go-to-market, and I'm going to stop there because Anna's going to tell us a lot more about that. Anna, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and then a little bit more about TigerEye to just set the stage before we get into some more details and specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I lead sales here at TigerEye. I've been here since the beginning. Fun fact about this team, these founders and a lot of the executive team and the developers, we all worked together at our last startup, PlanGrid, which was in the construction tech space. We grew that from 0 to 100 million and sold it for just shy of $1 billion to Autodesk. This is the tool we wished we had when we were scaling that company. So this came out of a real life scenario of a tool that we didn't have but wished we did. So it's my dream tool to bring to market from a sales perspective, and it's a modern take on business intelligence specifically for go-to-market.
Yeah, I love it. I think that when founding teams go out to solve problems for themselves, basically ones that they have an acute pain point for, they know what it feels like. Those are how some of the most successful companies get built. So I love knowing that that's the origin story. And before we get into more on the product and the solution, let's maybe hit on more of the problem space that you've experienced. I know I've experienced. I'm sure a lot of other people have experienced as well. So what are the problems that revenue operators are faced with, tasked with every day, every week, every month that you all are set out on a mission to solve for? What's life like in a pre-TigerEye sort of world?
Business intelligence is not a new term. It's been around for a long time. It's traditionally a very horizontal product that collects a lot of data from a lot of systems and allows for technical folks to pull reports and deliver insights to practitioners in different departments over time. And I think that's been the status quo for a long time. Maybe if you're lucky and you're far enough up in a single department, you might get your own dashboard someday. And if you're lucky, you might be able to change that once a year. It involves often some folks that have technical capabilities in order to map that data, maintain the structure and where that data is pulling from, and then obviously the storage and the system upkeep, making sure all those things are all connected. So not only do you have a lot of people working on it, but you have to be specific about your requests. And I think it's always in hindsight. So you're reporting on numbers that have come in, and then you review them after you get the data back, and then you try to make changes for the future. So it's always like a backwards feel. I feel like BI is always coming in after the fact. And that's always been a little bit painful. I think people are more curious about real-time reporting. I think, in go-to-market, you're responsible for a number, but often you don't have access to all of the data that could help you inform yourself about how to get to that number. And TigerEye is trying to change all of that.
Yeah, I know I've experienced that firsthand where you have questions. Again, you typically start with questions. You have questions that you need answered. For me, in particular, I'm not a data engineer. I don't know how to code. I don't know SQL. And so I've been in this situation where it's like, okay, I go to my data engineering team. I ask them to do things to help give me these answers. That takes too long. It ultimately comes back not the way that I need it or want it. And then by the time it actually is what I want, I can no longer even really remember what I asked for or why I asked for it. It's far too, we're past the point of it actually being useful and valuable. So if that's what things look like kind of pre-TigerEye, then why don't you walk us through how life is improved and how those problems are solved with something like the TigerEye platform and solution?
Yeah. When somebody says, what do you guys do at TigerEye? I kind of boil it down to we solve your worst data problems. And we do that the same way other tools do. We snap into those tools, we collect that data. We do it a little bit different because we collect it over time. So we've got storage built in, meaning we're snapshotting it and we're a time series database. But we produce three really distinct areas that I think we help both the operators, more of those technical folks, and the practitioners, which I'll consider that kind of the marketing through sales, through customer success. And that's the first one is in the insights and dashboards, and that's really in speed and autonomy to tracking those goals. We give them tools for that. And then territories and segments is huge for us. We're great at visualization and we're great at being able to slice and dice data in ways that you haven't been able to look at it on a screen before. Things that were done in spreadsheets can now be done in a systematic way. AI is baked into our platform. It's not bolted on after the fact. So being able to use natural language to ask questions and be curious and get those answers back in real time without having to involve an operator can either reduce the ticket count for our RevOps team or can create a sequence for an operator that opens up SQL really quickly, and then you can create the charts that your team might need in a much more effective way. So yeah,
Yeah.
insights, territories, and AI.
Yeah. I love it. I know those are all, yeah, all things that I think every operator needs certainly some help on. So what does that stuff look like within TigerEye? You mentioned the operators that and the things you're doing to go out and help them. What does it actually look like on the other side though?
Yeah, so the three big areas we've got a chat interface that knocks out a lot of it. I think that takes the pressure off of operators for having to answer all of the ad hoc questions because it just simplifies the process for anybody that might say, where are we at today? That's a common question. That's probably our number one question. Number two is the ease of dashboard creation. The ETL work, all of that is done on our side. So data mapping is also something we take off of the plate of our customers. Our team does that for you. So you can actually just get to work in TigerEye. You don't have to worry about that mapping. Some people struggle with BI because it might return answers that aren't super specific. Something like win rate might be defined differently by a solution than maybe how you scrub that internally at your company. And we take care of that with specific metric definitions. So I can show you that in the platform, but it's really helps teams get super granular. And that comes down to kind of how our foundation is set up.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, give us a tour. I want to see what it looks like.
It's very much a show me product. So let me show you here. All right, so this is TigerEye. Up top, we've got that conversational AI chat. We call it TigerChat. In the middle are going to be our shortcuts. These are, when we connect to systems, which are commonly anything in go-to-market, spans from marketing automation, CRM, ERP, and then anything that falls outside of that. Turns out a lot of companies have like a one-off solution that maybe they've got some data they might need us to connect to. We can connect to those as well. Once we connect to the data, it's going to pre-populate these pre-built modules, so we can click into those and you can see what we've got out of the box. But then from there, you start that customized view. That's where the dashboards come in. Traditional dashboards look a lot like other dashboards folks have seen, but I can show you the ease in which they are built in TigerEye. That granularity that I was talking about comes with our metrics gallery. So something as simple as win rate. Now, I might define that as total deals won over all deals closed, but the company next door might define that as only deals that make it to sales qualified stage 2 over all deals closed minus deals closed from duplicate, because they scrub those numbers a little bit. We're able to hard code that into a gallery of metrics so that anytime somebody's looking at win rate in your instance, it's going to use that exact formula for how your company defines win rate instead of just guessing at how you measure it. That way there's standardization across any set of metrics that your team might use. Helps with the definitions, helps with accuracy, especially in that TigerChat. So if you've got a practitioner, someone like myself in sales, that's just like, what's the win rate for my team? It's going to pull that even if I'm not really sure how my company measures a win rate. It's going to be standardized
Yeah.
for everybody. A couple other things in here. So I talked about that chat. We're able to ask questions, for those operators. I was probably the one that was most curious. So I was the one submitting all of the tickets, being like, please pull a report for this. I need a report for that. They'd send it back. I'd be like, actually, I needed this column ahead. Go grab me more data. But with somebody like TigerEye, our goal is to reduce that ticket count for our RevOps team by giving this to both operators and what we call practitioners. Operators can use this too. So you can set up a simple ask. You could ask, how much have we closed today? How much revenue do we have per segment? You might want to ask a question that's more specific, like, how much are we closing each month? And then I'll use the little @ symbol here. You can see it pulls up different categories, but I can pull down to a specific segment. I can pick enterprise this year. So I can grab a question like this. What the platform does is it actually uses this question. It's going to write a SQL. It's going to generate SQL for me. So then it pulled this for me automatically. So it's going to say, all right, in enterprise, this is how much you're closing per month. And for our technical folks, you can actually check the SQL. So we're not a black box tool at all. We give you all of that SQL. The summary is more for somebody like me. I don't read SQL as a salesperson. You can turn this into a graph if you wanted to. You can auto graph it. But what's nice is it just gives you that answer right out of the gate so that you can kind of move on. You can ask follow-up questions. You can continue to interact with the chat. But for our operators, it's like, all right, I might want to ask this question as a starting point, but our operators like to take it a little bit further. So there's a pop-out window here. And if we take this in, you'll see this gets to a little bit more technical part of the product. And this is called SQL Explorer. This gives you the opportunity to really dig into that code, and you can actually start to play around with it. I can start to tweak the code. I can get into my chart configuration, pick a different type of chart. I can play around with the axes here. I can even get into full chart configuration, change the axes and the labeling, and get into a little bit more of the Tableau features inside of that. What's nice about that is it's as simple as saving this. If I want to save this, enterprise by month, I can save it down, and now that's a saved view. If I want to, I can add this to any dashboard. I can save it for my team. It's ready to go.
Yeah. I was going to call out before, I like how you use the word curious instead of needy, which I think is how maybe some other operators would communicate about the sales leader or marketing leader or CS leader or CEO who is constantly asking for more reports or more questions. So I like the word curious a lot more. And the SQL Explorer stuff is awesome. Like I was mentioning before, I was in one of those boats where, I didn't know how to generate those things myself, right? But having the ability to go in and do all of that in a no-code way is pretty incredible. I guess one question that popped up as you were doing this and showing the TigerChat and stuff before is it accessible through a web browser? Are you embedded into CRMs? Where would people access the chat? Where can they put some of these charts, stuff like that? Where would some of this stuff live for people?
Yeah. So TigerEye is a desktop app. We are launching web soon, so you'll also be able to find it on your web browser coming soon. You'll notice we're tab-based at the top, so we operate a lot like a web browser in your desktop application, and we also are available on mobile. The chat is available on all of those things, as are all of your dashboards.
Yeah, that's great. And can you pull up any of the dashboards to just show what some of them look like? I mean, I know you mentioned dashboards can be dashboards, but I don't know,
they are pretty. I do love a lot of the colors on them. So you're able to track a lot of different things, whether it's a single stat or a graph. You can see here, these things can be popped out as well into a full view, which then also gives you a table. What I love about it is they're very interactive. So if I'm I can look at the forecast from the beginning page, I can track it here, and then I can actually click into it and get more detailed panel. This is in a sample environment, but if I was connected to a live CRM, I'd actually have an open in Salesforce or open in HubSpot button here. So this could jump me directly to the opportunity in my own CRM if I wanted it to. You'll notice a couple things on here out of the gate is that we've got lots of details that we can add, lots of clickable areas, lots of drillable areas. So whether you're looking at time periods, filters, drillables, alerts. This one's got some alerts on it. It's got a past due opportunity and a stalled deal. We're giving you a lot of signals and intents because we're tracking this data over time. So it gives you this ability to kind of dig in without having to go find that needle in a haystack. It's doing a lot of that stuff for you.
Yeah. And I like the metric library you showed at the beginning too is great. I think like having common definitions and more importantly, having a place for all of that stuff to live is super important. Different companies have different definitions for something like win rate, but I've seen that before, and just making sure that everyone's operating like when they look at something like win rate, they don't have to ask that next question of like, well, is this how we do win rate? Is it adjusted for that one thing or these two things? So having that metric library is super, super critical.
Yeah, we find that the way that people measure pipeline, conversion rates, and win rate and churn are probably like the top metrics that are like uniquely defined. And maybe even how you define a customer. That word is also a little bit tricky. You know, when are they a customer? When are they not a customer? When can they become a customer again, depending on the type of business that you might be in?
Yeah, and once you start into getting into different business models, contracts, I mean, for example, if someone starts on a POC with you is like, well, are they a customer? Are they just like, are they like pre-customer? They're better than a prospect? Like, you know, where do you put those people? And then if they extend the POC, what does that mean? If they convert, if they don't convert, is that churn? Is that not churn? Lots of different variations you can get into there, which is also one of the reasons why this stuff can get so complex, right? And you can start to run all of these really complex if then take this out, take that out, add that here, add that there. And the fact that a lot of what we're looking at is all done in a no-code way where you can click through, drag, drop, move things around is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think often you can't fix what you can't see. And sometimes when I would get into a single platform, I would create a report that I thought was showing me all of my renewals that were open, and I thought I was filtered to the right thing, but my filters eliminated some things that I might have needed to see, but I was like over filtered or under filtered, or somehow I had limited myself, but maybe my counterpart next to me, we thought we were looking at the same report, but somehow we had different numbers, even though we thought we had the same filters. That kind of stuff happens a lot. TigerEye really aims at transparency. And so it kind of gives you all the data, and then the filters can kind of come on and off a little bit more easily. So now I popped into one of our out of the box modules, and I'll show you here kind of a list of those. Sales and marketing at the top, kind of spanning from anything lead campaign related through the sales funnel, customer success, think renewal related. Finance, we connect to ERP systems, so think out of the box finances, any report you might need for that. It's all in view only, so this really alleviates maybe if some of your team has to produce a board deck or QBRs and stuff like that. This can be a little bit more automated. And then we've got performance, and then these are really tools for operators, that data mapping, those metrics, being able to get into SQL Explorer out of the gate. But I popped into forecast just to show you some of these things that TigerEye does really well. And again, this is just out of the box, behind the scenes. There's a lot of lines on here. If I turn some of them off, you can see here, I'll grow them in. We can add your target lines in here. We can also add, we know where you've clocked out. We track your weighted projection, which is going to be whichever CRM you have in here. So let's just use Salesforce, for example. RevOps is often triangulating the forecast. Sales will roll up a forecast. RevOps will triangulate another mathematical calculation of forecast. Sometimes they use the standard probabilities assigned in Salesforce. TigerEye also has another forecast. We have a Markov chain approach. So we measure the movement of every opportunity down to the rep level, down to the opportunity type. So whether it's a renewal, an expansion op, a net new op per rep, and we look at how often those reps are moving or not moving those opportunities forward and backward. And we measure that to look at the likelihood that each person by type is going to close those deals. And by measuring that exact probability, we apply that to the opportunities and then forecast for you. So it's like a weighted probability, but it's measured, calculated, then applied, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Super sciencey, but it's a little bit more accurate in our opinion, obviously. It's an opinionated approach, but we expose that math here. Again, we're not a black box. So the sample data is showing a 41.39% likelihood to close with 193 days in the stage. Negotiation, 49%, 24 days to close. Because we are not a black box, we actually give you the back test for it. So you can see here, we'll actually give you the back test on our data. So you can play time backwards. I can show you time warp. Time warp is in here. You can actually play time backwards in TigerEye. So I can look backwards. I can go back to June 10th. We're snapshotting all of this data. So I can go back. I can look at what our back test was here on that date to see kind of like where we were going to clock out and where we think we're going to clock out to date. So you can always look back to see if our math is correct. I think that's a good representation of understanding the behavior of your team, because you can actually drill down to an individual with the filters. So you can look at, how is an individual rep, how is this rep doing? I can look at their qualification. All right, they're at 40%. I can judge their performance. Are they more of a sandbagger? Are they overly optimistic in their late stage? And then I can coach and help their sales team, their sales management, coach effectively to how each individual is performing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the transparency stuff I think is super important, because I know we've all been, I'm sure you've been in this spot, I know I've been in this spot too, where you maybe show up to meetings or you're going to have conversations with other teams and you need data, visuals, things like this to help you generate insights that will ultimately indicate the actions that you take. And so what you want to do is spend your time talking about what the data tells you, the insights that you can glean, and the actions that you should take. But so often when you don't have solid data or transparent data, what winds up happening is what that example you'd given before, where it's like you look at one report and then you say one thing, the other person is like, well, that's not the same number I have. And then you wind up basically just talking about whose is right and wrong and how it should be corrected. And you don't wind up talking at all about the things that you should do based on what the data is telling you, which is the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah. For a lot of our customers, the very first thing we set up for them, because we're so good at looking at large data sets and combing through to find whether there's missing data, duplicate data, anomalies in the data, things that go outside of ranges, we can set up parameters to comb through and scrape that for you. So we'll set up, we get to know a client. Maybe this gets into a little bit of implementation and onboarding, but one thing that makes us modern is that we can connect to systems. Most things have pretty modern APIs. Connections take minutes, but our average onboarding time to give you TigerEye back is 11 to 14 days, which is very different from most BI tools, meaning you get your hands on this data and can start to play and interact with it in less than 2 weeks. And then from there, it's all about the configuration and customization of the environment. Our team helps you set up these dashboards or sets them up for you during deployment to make sure that your team is optimized for crew, training, onboarding, standardization. Depending on which team we onboard first, typically it's RevOps, we start to get in their work to define those metrics, get their first dashboards going, and then we'll start to train the practitioners after the fact. But data quality is something we often start with because we'll try to figure out their baselines. How many deals do you have that are missing a critical field that you guys need to capture? How many opportunities have been stalled or are past due or whatever that might be that feels like a data quality issue that has been plaguing your team for a while. It goes back to that, like, you can't fix what you can't see. So how do we capture those baselines for your team? And even these reports do have time warp. So like you don't have to download these and like keep static files of your dashboards. You can actually go back in time and say, all right, well, on March 12th, this is where we were on this dashboard. So like, these dashboards are dynamic and you're able to go back in time and time warp around in them. The data collection is very unique in the sense that you can go back and review where you were and where you're going.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And yeah, I mean, even what we're looking at here, right? You like helping on the data quality side. So I know that's another thing that might be coming into people's minds a little bit is, garbage in, garbage out. And so how do you, yeah, what are some things that you all can do at TigerEye to help people with data quality and understanding where they have maybe gaps and what they can do to fix it?
Yeah, I think the first thing is if they have already identified that they've got struggles in data quality, we can comb through with our AI and figure out where they have the most common duplicate problems, and then we'll start tracking them so that they can start to automate cleanup around those areas. If they've got places where they know they've got missing data, hey, we always want our opportunity type filled out. All right, we'll create alerts to make sure that you know when those things are happening. The first part is quantifying how big the problem is. That's almost always where we get started. And then from there, it's monitoring the progress. So once we've got our arms around how to, I'll say, stop the bleeding, right? You got to figure out where it's coming from. Then it's about monitoring. So we go into our alerts. These are also SQL based. So you can start to look at things like inactive accounts. We're looking at things where we create no activity in 90 days. So this is an alert for something like that, or past due is pretty easy. This is going to look at an account that hasn't had an opportunity or a close date that's in the past. So for some companies, that's a huge problem. They spend a lot of time chasing down the reps to clean up these opportunities because RevOps can't run a report accurately without these things cleaned up, and they spend hours a week chasing this stuff. Not only can you look at how your team is doing today, these things can create shareable links. All of our tables here, these are clickable, drillable. These operate a bit like a spreadsheet. You can toggle different parts of these on and off, even custom fields. So if your company, you're like, our Salesforce is so configured, or our HubSpot is so hard to use, that's perfect. That's fine. We bring in all of the custom fields in here so you can really sort by just about anything. And then you can send this out. You can share the link with your problem children on here. But you can also then have accountability because I can go back in time. I can, time warp back to, hey, I told you had to have these cleaned up a couple days ago. Where were we a couple days ago? Where are we today? There's true accountability in the platform. Most of the time these CRMs override themselves, but in here you can actually play time backwards and hold teams accountable for progress. I think that's
Yeah.
really a unique differentiation in a BI tool like this that's so easy to access and then easy to kind of use in a dynamic way.
Yeah. And so you mentioned on the implementation side, roughly 11 to 14 days after you get connections that you're able to start delivering things back. What are some of the, I guess, most common integrations that people use? And I'm guessing maybe the list is shorter of things that you don't integrate with versus the things that you do integrate with. But what are the most popular or common ones that people set up first?
Yeah, it's almost always their CRM because that seems to be their system of truth. It's where almost everything integrates into their CRM. That's where they push most of their data. So it tends to be where we start. If that's not the case, then it's usually their data lake or some other larger data set that they want us to pull from. As soon as the CRM is set up, it often goes to finance because those finance confirmed numbers are often a second source of truth and a comparison point. If they're a heavy marketing led company and their marketing data sits in a different platform that's not the same as their CRM, then that is the third most common one. For almost every company, there's one other tool that they're using that has maybe like a 10% data that they're not pushing into those, that they're like, if we could connect this, it would be so great. We can absolutely get that in there and we can work with it. It's just really what they want to be able to do with that data and how they want to be able to query it.
Yeah. And what types of companies are typically a good fit? Or maybe what types of problems are the ones that people might start experiencing now that you're like, hey, those are right in our wheelhouse. We can totally help with those. How should people be thinking about good fit for something like TigerEye?
Yeah, I think there's like three stages. The first one is RevOps hire of one. We've got teams that are trying to stretch every dollar at the beginning, and I don't want to say they're dragging their feet on hiring. They're just kind of like really cautious about going too fast in over hiring and headcount. So it's like, where can we automate the most? And this can be a great RevOps hire of one. This can get you by with a non-technical person for quite some time. It can automate those dashboards. It can write those reports for your sales leader without having a analyst in-house. So I think for some of our smaller companies that are just getting started, it can be a great add-in without having to have a full-blown hire, and it's a fraction of the cost of a human hire for that. It's not going to be a permanent solution, but it will stretch for a while to help you get to that next level. In part two, which I haven't shown you territories yet, I think that's a big component for the next tier of customers is when you're getting to a point where you've got multiple sales leaders and you've got teams that are hiring, firing, promoting, you've got a marketing team, a sales team, a customer success team. I talk about the winds of change, which can come from a lot of reasons, but anytime they're facing this growing, shrinking leadership change, there's an opportunity. BI it's not necessarily easy or hard to change, but it's never on somebody's list. Nobody's like, I'm doing a BI evaluation. I have yet to have seen that. It seems status quo part of a company. And a lot of times maybe it's just because it's not a tool set that gets evaluated very often. And maybe it's because there's not a lot of disruption in that market, to be honest. But when we see that teams are struggling with these certain pain points and we say, hey, we've got some new ideas, they're very much open to thinking about things a little bit different. It seems like that's when they're open to change. But obviously there's cost of change. So they have to be in a change mindset or a growth mindset in order to kind of be open to it. And
Yeah.
then the third tier is enterprise. They're looking for something to solve a very niche problem. And we have a solution that can plug into just about anything and solve some of the gnarliest data problems for them. So we've really tackled some of that. Think like the real estate industry or big data problems where we can connect to unique sources and synthesize that stuff for them. So it kind of fits
Yeah.
into like unique problems.
Yeah. You mentioned territories a little bit. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of what y'all can do on the territory side?
Yeah. So this comes from like some of the worst problems I've ever faced, which are all spreadsheet driven, meaning someone comes to you and says, hey, I think you guys sold a lot last year. I think you should add another headcount. Where should we put them? And you're like, huh? What do you mean, where should we put them? I don't
Yeah.
know. Here's a spreadsheet. Can you figure that out? And you're like, great. So we kind of start zoomed out a little bit. We understand all of your data by segments. You can imagine this in a sample data. This is like the breakdown of how any company could possibly look at segments by industry here. And then we've got mid-market, SMB, enterprise. You could look at it that way. You could look at it by geo, like central, east, west. If I look at central, these are where those metrics are going to come in. We're always tracking those things for your team. This is looking at quarter over quarter performance. Again, these are getting granular with how you define those metrics. But here we've created a flag. This sample company has said, hey, give me an alert if any of these territories are out of balance based on my definition of out of balance. So this one's got a flag. Central's got a flag. It's like, hey, one of your territories is out of balance. You should go fix it. So I can jump to the territories. This is going to give me a Kanban view here of all of my central territories with all of their very unique, as RevOps people know, territory names, Central 1, Central 2, Central 3. Um, it lists out all the things that you would pull naturally from territory information, what the territory is, and then who owns it. Everything below that, these are the accounts. So I can toggle through the accounts here. And then you'll see a lot of numbers on our pages. But all of those things are editable. So if I want to look at balancing territories, it's as simple as picking which metrics are important to me. So maybe in this one, it's how many accounts somebody has and what their amount booked was. But maybe for somebody else, it's looking at how many competitive deals there are or what the churn rate is, because maybe we care more about the retention of business over a different variable. You actually get to pick what metrics you want to start to balance these territories on. You can also pick the metrics per account to understand how you look at which accounts you're going to move around. Now, when I'm in territories, this is looking at what's live in my CRM, but as I play around with it, it's not updating my CRM live. This is now a playground for whether you're leaving this up to sales leadership or to your RevOps team to look at. It's a playground for experimentation and evaluation of territories without mucking up the CRM. Once you're done and you have it approved, you export it and then you can upload it to your CRM exactly in the right format and all of that. But you're not going to mess anything up by moving these things around. It's as simple as dragging and dropping. You'll notice at the top here, these things update live. I can drag and drop. I can move them around as much as I want. Drag and drop. You'll see these things live. You get a couple icons. But this is a way that you can just start to look at balancing. You'll notice I've even got some icons on here. This is for inactive accounts. So maybe I was tasked with creating a new territory. I can create a new territory here. And then maybe I just want to take all the ones that are not being worked and start moving them in. I can filter by my alert if I want, and then I can drop all of those in there. Maybe I can build a whole new territory just based on the accounts that aren't even being worked anyway. But what's nice about this is I can start to look at whether or not these are balanced. I can even look at these things on a map. So if I want to zoom in, I can filter down to anywhere on a map. I can even filter to one particular segment if I want. Maybe I just want to look at central. I can look at where my accounts are. It's all drillable. So if I want to look at a particular account, I can drill into it here. But what's nice is you can start to imagine whether you're a geo-based or you're a named account. It's nice to be able to just visualize between maps view and account view to just understand if these things are balanced and calibrated for fairness. I think the synergies between territory cutting, account growth, and then releasing that and then tracking those metrics kind of go hand in hand all year long. Once you get through that portion, so export, you can export your changes, you can export all of it, and then you are ready to go and upload these things into your CRM. Simple as that. Yeah.
And so it seems like the tool can do a lot. You mentioned, I mean, we talked about territories, SQL Explorer, chat, forecasts, lots of different things, dashboards. So how should people think about, or what can you share around pricing and kind of how things are structured? Like, is it module by module? Is it one platform? Is it one platform with per user? How should folks be thinking about the pricing side of the equation?
Yeah. So when we were thinking about what didn't work for us, what sucked about BI in the past, to be honest, the pricing model was a big part of it. When you get a per license product in BI, you start to have to say, well, how often are they using it? Are they logging in? Do they even use it? Well, as a sales leader, I had one dashboard. How often am I going to log into one dashboard? I mean, it's not that helpful, but I did want to use BI, but the less they gave me, the less I used it.
Yeah.
We wanted to change that. So we are a company-wide pricing model, meaning transparency is key. So access and being able to distribute this to all users that need it is also key. So company-wide means you can deploy this in operations. You can also deploy it to all of your practitioners, even if they only want one dashboard. That's fine. It's not going to cost you more money. We scale up, so we go by company size, SMB, mid-market, enterprise. We do have modules available. So if you just wanted territories, we can parse that out and price that accordingly. If you just want dashboards and insights, both have chat available, both have the AI component in it. That is available as well. Most people buy it all together because it's just what most people do, the looping between the two, because they track the KPIs after they've released the territories, but they are available separately.
Yeah. And I guess two other questions for you. So one is, if you had to pick just one differentiator from that puts TigerEye kind of at the top from any of your competition, and that can be competitive products that are out there, it can be spreadsheets, right? The old way of doing things. And just one, so that doesn't mean like one sentence where you say 5 things, but like just one differentiator. Like what would be the one thing that you would say differentiates TigerEye from everyone else and really puts you all at the top?
Speed. I think it's speed. I think it's how fast. I've used every BI tool on the market, and we beat everyone. And if I think most people tap out by the spinning wheel of death. So
Yeah.
I would put us up against anyone for speed. And I think it's the thing that keeps their attention in it to continue to go deeper into the product. So
Yeah. Cool.
speed feeds curiosity. That's for sure.
I like that. All right. And then how can someone, I guess, try the product? Is there a way to like self-serve, free trial? Is it best to book a demo? Do you do POCs? Like, what's the best way for someone who looks at that and is like, oh my God, I need that. How do they get access? What can they do to take the next step?
Yeah. So we have a sandbox environment. So it is sample data. It's not your data, but you can play around with it anytime you want. No obligation to talk to me or to talk to anybody else. You can just download TigerEye and play around in the sample environment. Everything from territories to dashboards to the AI is all available in that sample environment. I think it gives you a really good feel of how it drives, the speed that it offers, and the usability of the product. It also gets into just whether or not it'd be a good fit for whether or not it solves the problems for your team.
Yeah. Yeah. And people can kind of learn more. Is that the best way for them to learn more and reach out?
Yep, that's a great place for that. We also have a lot of videos on our YouTube page. I do a lot of live demos. I have a monthly live demo as well that you can just join anytime. So if you ever want to ask questions, I host one of those. That's also under our events page. So if you just want to join and see what's new on TigerEye, I host that once a month. Our YouTube page also has a ton of recorded videos and little slices of the product if you want to see little granular cuts of deeper functionality. Those are available there as well.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Well, Anna, thank you very much for giving us the rundown on the TigerEye product. It looks amazing, incredible. I wish I would have had it years and years ago, but unfortunately, I don't have time warp like the TigerEye product does, and I can't go back in time and make that happen. But I think every revenue operator would be very well served with a product like this. So I really appreciate you giving us the rundown.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today.